Hello everyone, this is the Indian Cynophilist Puranik. This is the first time we're trying to come to you in a video format. I want to do a podcast on intro to dog sports. I've been wanting to do it for a long time now, but I've been spending some time to sort of uh, get in questions from some of my training clients, some of the people that follow me online, and some of my friends who already are introduced to dog sports. And I'll try and answer some of the questions here. So the first question: what exactly are dog sports? So long back, dog sports, like what we call them dog sports today, were essentially breed tests for certain kind of dogs, right? Like in Germany, you had Schutzhund for the German Shepherd dog. So Schutzhund, for example, is a very high level of obedience, protection work, and tracking, right? Dog and handler teams would be part of all these three disciplines, and the dogs that did really well in all of them uh, would would be sort of seen as a better as a better specimen of that breed, right? Because this was back when workability was the prime sort of reason why people wanted these dogs, right? So they served more as breed tests. The same happened in Belgium, in France with their Malinois, right? They have the Belgian ring sport, they have the French ring sport, things like that. That's basically where dog sport came from. Like it was essentially a breed test, and now what's happening is it's yeah. I mean, till today, even like to a certain extent, it still serves as like a test for your dog's working ability and basically breedability to a certain extent, not necessarily entirely true today. Uh, but apart from that, what it also does is it gives you a platform, like it gives trainers a platform to showcase their training. Uh, it it sort of creates an avenue for people to go and look at working dogs and be able to select good specimen of working dogs for whatever their requirements might be. The next question we have: are there a lot of dog sports, and can you list a few? uh, Let me start by sort of let me try and categorize dog sports a little bit. There is something called as bite sports, like Schutzhund that I already mentioned in the last question. Ring sport, typically there is PSA. There are a few other sports out there that fall into the category of bite sports. What that means essentially is, apart from other disciplines like maybe tracking or some sort of search exercise in few of them, and obedience, obviously, bite work or protection work is a major aspect of these sports, right? And then there are sports that are like really non-bite sports, right? Like you have agility. There are certain kind of sports for like herding. There are certain kind of sports there out there for like retrievers, stuff like that. There's also fly ball. There is dog diving. There are a lot of sports that don't really have bite work as a part of them, right? But yeah, I would say there are too many to list all of them, really. uh, and like there are sports that are pretty international now, that like they are available in a lot of countries, and there are sports which are pretty local to some countries or to some region, right? And some of them contribute towards the gene pool of certain working breeds more than others. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot available if you are a hobbyist or a trainer, and you're looking to get into a certain kind of dog sport. So the third question that we have is, can you tell us something about your journey in dog sports? Right. So I sort of started with some IGP people in India. like, okay, so let me sort of give you a little bit of a background. Like IGP is essentially Schutzhund, but I think they sort of, when they took it international, they started calling it something else. Like Schutzhund, I think, happens only in Germany, and like internationally, it's IGP, and it has like really minor rule changes here and there, but it's essentially the same sport, right? So I started training with and learning from certain IGP people, uh, and this was almost like a decade ago, and I was more sort of into protection work. Like I wanted to be a decoy, or in IGP they call it a helper, right? What that means is the person who teaches the protection work, who gets bitten, and who is responsible for building up the dog in protection, like building the dog's confidence and his technique about how to fight the decoy and all that, right? That's called a training decoy or a training helper in IGP, right? So I was more interested in that aspect of it, and that's how I sort of got into it. But like, since I was into it and I had a dog, so I just started training the dog as well. Now the thing with IGP is that we don't really have it in our country, right? And back then I was not very much into wanting to compete in sports and all that. I just wanted to be a part of its training so that I can pick aspects of it and try and use into my like use it in like real world applications. That was the idea, right? And even today, I mean, that's not something that I don't do. I still do it, but I'm a lot more involved with sports as well now. So anyway, coming back to, like, I got in touch. I started training with these IGP people, and since the sport wasn't available, we did not, like, we trained a lot, but we did not really do in terms of like actually competing in the sport, right? And eventually, like in my travels to try and learn from a lot of people, there was very limited sort of learning resources available in India at that time, like much lesser than what are available right now. So in my travels to learn about how to advance in protection work, in like competition level obedience, etc., I got in touch with Gerard Bradshaw. Everyone like here in India knows him now, and he invited me to his facility in North Carolina, and I was training there for a little while, and that's where I came across PSA, which is an American-born bite sport, right? And now we have that sport in India. So what we did was we got down Jerry to do a seminar for us in India, just the same year that I was there at his facility. And what happened was this he introduced PSA to India, and it was like really well received by some of the bigger trainers in the country, right? And now we have PSA and like PSA competitions happening in the country, and I'm very much a part of competing in PSA. It was started in 2016. Like, we had the first competitions happening in 2016. I've come, like, of course, the last 2-3 years we could not have competitions because of COVID, but like I've competed in PSA twice, and I've titled 2 dogs so far. And pretty recently I just got my decoy certification for PSA trial decoying. So this is sort of what I've done so far, with my journey into dog sports. I hope it's a long journey. What I want to do ahead is I really hope to someday have my PSA 3. For people who don't know, getting a PSA 3 is really difficult. There are only 31 PSA 3 dogs all over the world, right? And like, it's crazy difficult, and hopefully someday, hopefully I'll have a PSA 3, and it'll be really awesome to be a part of that club. The next question we have, was like, what are the dog sports that are available in India? So realistically, PSA is all we have right now. We have like a pretty decent IGP crowd that train for IGP, uh, but there's about one or two people that travel abroad and title an IGP, like, and that I guess they've just like done it a couple of times or something like that, right? There, like, so far there aren't IGP trials happening in India. Okay, I hope it starts happening soon. But yeah, so far we have PSA. I think we also have a pretty decent, like, I've seen for a really long time we've had a decent crowd that's been interested in like agility. Uh, but I have to say I haven't, like, I don't like that it hasn't evolved in like in forever, like, like, I've seen people do like really basic stuff, like, they've been like just showing dogs all the obstacles or whatever, like, just sort of walking them through it with a leash or something like that. And I've seen this happen for, well, almost a decade, and maybe apart from one or two odd people out there, I still see the same thing happening. So I know that there's interest in agility, I guess, but I would have like for example, PSA has been around since just like 2016, and it's evolved even within India tremendously, right? Same with, like, even though IGP hasn't even been in India, but just the way that they're training for it now has evolved tremendously. So yeah, it'll be awesome if we can see agility evolve, like some of the other sports that people are trying out for are evolving. But yeah, these three I would say are sports that have pretty decent interest, like, within the country. The next question that we have is, when do you see IGP trials happening in India? To be very honest, again, a very personal opinion, I may be wrong about this because I'm not really involved with the people that are trying to make it happen, right now. But what I feel is one of the major reasons that it's not happened so far is that it's just got like too much, like too many, like, you have to take permissions from this club and that club, and then that club is affiliated to a third club, and there's a big route that you have to go through, like for something like PSA, which is not really affiliated to anything. Like, there's one central association and there are clubs that talk directly to like to the association, right? Like, there's a club in India, like there's a club in Pune right now, there's a club in Hyderabad right now, and there's a club in Delhi right now, right? And all of these clubs talk directly to the association. They can say that we have these many people who have interest in trialing right now, and we would like you to send a judge over because we don't really have PSA judges in the country right now, and even senior decoys. And yeah, and the association, if there are enough people trialing in that club, and hopefully some of the other, like, members from other clubs will join in for the trials, the association will directly send judges over to make the trials happen. uh, for IGP, I think, in my personal opinion, like, whatever I've seen, there's too many people involved that have that need to okay a particular request for a trial to happen. That's what I think it is, or that's what I've been told by some of the IGP folks that I used to train with, and I still train with once in a while. But yeah, that's what I think it is, and it's a shame. Like, there are a lot of people that are training for it. There are a lot of people that want to train for it. I think even some of the people that train for PSA right now, I know would want to would want to train for IGP as well. I really don't see them dropping PSA for IGP or anything of that sort. But yeah, I mean, you can train for two sports. It's not unheard of, right?
How is PSA different from IGP?
Okay. Yeah, interesting question here. How is PSA different from IGP? Okay, so just the way you see it on the field, one of the क्या करूँ, क्वेश्चन से स्टार्ट करूँ या?
Very interesting question.
Okay. Very interesting question. How is PSA different from IGP? So just in the way that, like to begin with, just the way that you see it on the field, IGP, like the protection part of IGP, first of all, it happens on a sleeve, and PSA happens, like the protection happens in a body bite suit. Right, there are a lot of aspects that are different and there are a lot of aspects that are similar, right? So this is like one difference that you will see on the field. One major thing is IGP has tracking as one discipline out of the three. PSA doesn't have that. PSA is only obedience and protection. IGP is obedience, protection and tracking. So there's one entire discipline that you don't have in PSA, right? There's that. Apart from this, IGP is like it has a fixed routine to everything, like the obedience, the protection, and of course there will be variables that will happen on the field that might happen because of it's a different field, it's a different tracking field, it's different conditions to do obedience on, etc. But it's essentially always the same exercise and the same routine that you have to perform. In PSA, especially in like higher levels, it's not always like that. There are certain parts of PSA that you'll have to perform this routine, but there is a big part of the higher levels that aren't fixed. Like they'll tell you on the morning of the trial what exactly are you expected to do, right? So you can't train in a particular format, only in a particular format. That's not what you can do. You have to train exercises and you have to be able to put them together. You have to train skills and you have to be able to put them together in a lot of different ways, because you don't really know what exactly you're going to have to do on trial day, right? That being said, even just the way that it's judged is also very different. The reason I keep this this part, I try I kept it to sort of last to the back final side of the question, is because it's a little more difficult to understand for new people. So what happens is in IGP there is if you go to a club level trial in IGP, for good competitors, achieving that title is not very difficult, right? What is difficult though is after you have your IGP 3, you go on to the regionals, you go on to nationals, you go on to worlds, stuff like that. When you start competing at the bigger levels, that's where the difficulty lies. But just the getting the title for a good competitor is not tremendously difficult. What happens in PSA is even if you go to a club level trial, just getting the title is difficult. I'm not I don't want to put this I don't want people to feel I'm saying that PSA is more difficult than IGP is. I'm saying it's both the sports are difficult at different levels. IGP at worlds is crazy difficult. Yeah. So but what's happening is in IGP, because you're always performing the exact same thing. Let me give you an example. In IGP, you have the retrieve has 40 points, right? You have to do it thrice, once over a flat field, once over a hurdle, once over a A-frame, right? But you have 40 points for it, and it's always a dumbbell that the dog is retrieving, right? What's going to happen is the judging is done on really minute aspects of what's happening on the field, your positions. Does the dog touch you in the front position when he comes back in the retrieve? is he holding the dumbbell correctly? Is his grip sort of chattering about even a little bit? How he picks up the dumbbell, does he pick it up from when he's moving towards the dumbbell, or does he overrun the dumbbell and pick it up from the other side? All of this will matter in in your score. In PSA, what happens is you have a retrieve in PSA 2. It's a generalized retrieve. What does that mean? It means that they can ask you to they can ask you to have your dog retrieve any particular item. There are some exceptions to it, like I think in PSA 2 there's no metallic objects and there's no food, but it's not just a dumbbell. It's not like you can go to a trial day and whatever they ask you to retrieve might be something you've never practiced on, right? And what happens is, for all your troubles, that you teach a retrieve. After that, you teach the dog to generalize it, you do the same kind of retrieve on hundreds of different items, right? And for all your troubles, you get 5 points, like just 5 points for that retrieve, right? So what happens is, in PSA, you have to train, let's say, for example, 40 exercises, and they'll give you a little leeway on how well you've executed those exercises, as long as you've executed them. Sorry. But in IGP, you may not have to train 40 exercises, maybe you have to train just 15. But the leeway on how those 15 are executed is really, really small. Really, really small. So, that's basically, like in PSA, the difficulty is in the volume of the training that you're going to do. In IGP, it's more in, how clinically you can execute what you need to execute. Next question that's come to us is, if someone wants to choose between doing IGP and doing PSA, what sport would you recommend? Okay, so I want to first of all mention that I like all dog sports. I'm not someone who's very this sport is better and this sport is not good at all and all that. I like dog sports because I like going out onto the field with my dog and just having fun, and I like training, and I like being able to do something and achieve things together. So that's what drives me, as far as dog sports are concerned. One major thing, what makes this question easy to answer, is PSA is the only one that's available. So that's what you're going to do, because that's what is there, right now at least. Yeah, I mean, unless you're going to train and you're going to be able to travel regularly, abroad somewhere, and title in IGP, yeah, that's fine too. But what I would recommend, especially for new people, is do the sport that is nearest available to you. Now, like, we know IGP in terms of the competitions we don't really have here as of right now, but so let's say you stay somewhere where you might have a really good trainer somewhere close to you who does IGP. It'll probably make sense for you to go down that route, right? Because that's what that person can teach you. Yeah, of course, you can use a lot of aspects of that and use it into, let's say, even PSA. But yeah, I mean, to begin with, you can just go down that route, see if you're having fun. I did the same thing, right? Like, when I started out, there was only someone who used to do IGP that was available to help me out when I wanted to learn in the beginning. So yeah, that's what I did, and I found PSA and I started doing PSA more so because, I mean, at that point, that was the one that was going to be available to us. IGP just wasn't available. So yeah, and then obviously I just fell in love with it, and for me, what happens is I just enjoy the, how do you say, the unexpected nature of PSA. Like, you don't, like, in the higher levels, especially, you can go to trial day absolutely not knowing what they're going to ask you to do, and how do you prepare for something like that? It's a lot of fun. I fell in love with something like that. Again, it's what I'm tremendously into right now. I don't know. It's like in the future, I might also want to explore other things. I might want to explore IGP again. I might want to explore something else that might be available then. That is not to say I may not be doing PSA still, but yeah, I mean, do anything that you fall in love with, and do anything that is available to you in terms of having a mentor, because like I've seen some people sort of will just try things on their own. Usually people don't get far like that unless like you have like a lot of knowledge and skill already there, and that obviously doesn't happen on your own. You probably trained with someone before. But yeah, I mean, whatever is available to you, pick that. It's not it. Don't be like PSA is the thing to go with, or IGP is the thing to go with. Yeah, one more thing that I wanted to add is, in our country, I see a lot of people be like, okay, so what the situation that we are in right now, uh, what's going to happen is we have a lot of people, like a lot of people who are in dog sports and who's showcasing their training regularly are in this situation sort of considered as some of the best trainers in the country, rightly or wrongly. So let's not get into that right now. uh, but yeah, that's how people are looking at it, right? And so what's happening is, there are people out there who are uh, who will say to you that I'm going to train IGP. Like, they get a working dog, I'll train IGP just because IGP isn't available. So it sort of makes you like, how do you define someone that does IGP? How do you define someone that does PSA? Like, that is the problem right now. Do you define it as someone who's titled dogs in PSA, or someone who's training towards titling dogs in PSA? Well, that's essentially the problem. There are people who've been training towards it for a really long time, and they've never sort of stepped on to a trial field, be it IGP or be it PSA. So I've seen some people be like, I'm going to train IGP, and you can almost sense that they are saying that because IGP isn't available, so they won't have to step onto the trial field. Because try and understand, the trial field is, it humbles you. You go, like, usually you won't go into a trial field and come out the other side the same person. Like, you might be this really arrogant. I mean, I say this with my own experience, right? Like, you might be this really arrogant trainer who feels that I know everything. I am like really badass, whatever. Yeah, and the trial field sort of tells you, no, you aren't. There's still a long way to go. That's what the trial field does to you. And when you don't want to experience that kind of humility to sort of be pushed onto you, sometimes you make excuses to not get onto the trial field. Don't do that. So the next question that we have is, what if people are interested in doing dog sports, but like non-bite sports? I mean, most of which aren't available in the country right now. Like, what do they do? Like, how do they approach this? So what I can tell you about this is, get together. What's important is a group of people that want to do this. Get together, start training, whatever it may be. It may be agility. It might be maybe detection related sports, maybe tracking related, whatever it might be, right? Like, get together, start training towards it. If you've gotten together, you can maybe pull in some money and get someone down from any country that is like more developed in that sport, to come and sort of help you out and mentor you and help you develop your skills related to that sport. You don't really have to have like an official association just to train towards it, right? once you are at a certain level in training, then you can, think about, approaching whatever body it is that controls that particular sport, right? That's actually even what we like. Of course, we sort of fell into PSA when we did, but what we were doing is, because we were watching a lot of videos, and we were watching a lot of what is being done in like certain bite sports and all that, we were already training towards it. When we fell into PSA and when we sort of got PSA officially into the country, we were already a few years, at least a couple of years actually into training for something similar to what at least the lower levels of PSA would be. And yeah, that's essentially what you can do. And it's like, once you have trained to a certain level, and once you think you're ready to go into trial, it's fairly easy to get in touch with the associations that govern any particular sport that you're interested in, and you can have them send someone down to judge you and whatever is required, right? It's not very difficult. So just to give you an example, like a very interesting one at that, there were a few people in New York who had like these small terriers, like your Jack Russell, stuff like that. And what they did was, like, these dogs are designed to basically, they're terriers, right? They're designed to hunt like small game. So what they did was, just to give an outlet to their dogs and maybe just to have fun, like New York, from what I hear, has a big rat problem, I guess. So what they started doing was, they started getting together at night in certain parts of the city, and they started using their dogs to hunt rats. As bad as it, like, I know, like, it's going to sort of not be accepted well, I guess, by some people, but yeah, the city has rat problems, and they're going to be exterminated in some way or the other. What these guys are doing is giving their dogs an outlet. Their dogs enjoy it. They sort of built a community around it. And it just sort of blew up, and a lot of people with small terrier dogs within the city started joining them. And you have to understand, like, this is in the New York City, right? Like, they have these small apartments, so they have these small dogs. A lot of them don't get like a lot of outlet, because it's New York City, right? So they really found an awesome outlet for the dogs, like, which is just not physical, but where the dog is actually doing what it was, like, bred to do, right? So yeah, this is just an awesome example, and it's not like an official sport or anything like that. It's more or less an activity, but it's serving the purpose. The next question is, why should a common man, I think what they mean is like a pet parent, be involved with dog sports? Like, what do they get out of it? Okay, they get out of it a lot. Okay, like, for one thing, what I see it as is, dog sport is essentially an avenue for you and your dog to be a team, which is something that pet parents rarely get to experience. A lot of a lot of them get in touch with trainers because they have absolutely no clue, if they have a problem, why that problem is occurring, or how to help the dog in that situation, etc., etc., right? So there is no real communication happening to that level. I'm not saying there is absolutely no communication happening. Of course there is, but definitely not to that level, right? So you get an avenue where you get to be, and you get to go through certain things and achieve certain things as a team with your dog. While doing that, you get to understand your dog on a very different level that pet parents may not have seen before. So there's that. It obviously makes you a better trainer, right? So, like, why does a pet parent need to be a better trainer? Because, I mean, ultimately you have a dog, right? If you don't know how to communicate well with your dog, some of the problems that eventually may arise and often do, you're not really in the best position to sort of figure out why it's happening, and what to do about it, stuff like that, right? So yeah, it helps you be a better trainer. And just to tell you, I was in the US just recently, about a month back, and I trained with and learned from a lot of people who are really seniors in PSA, a lot of which aren't professional trainers. Like that's not what they do for a living. They have like a lot of different professions, and but they are some of the best trainers I've seen ever. So I mean, just imagine their dogs must have an awesome life, right? Because their humans really understand them. And of course, beyond all of this, if you are able to choose a sport for your dog that sort of coincides with what the dog was meant to do, it sort of helps you give an outlet for your dog, right? Like if you have a Belgian Malinois, which right now is blowing up, everyone wants to have a Belgian Malinois. Well, what does a Belgian Malinois do? It's designed to bite, right? So do a bite sport. At least what you're going to be doing is doing this thing that your dog was created for in a very safe, very responsible setting, with people to teach you, and you don't just have a Malinois that is maybe out of control, and the dog's really not able to do anything that it was intended to, or it was bred for. And yeah, that's pretty much it. So this will be our last question. We're losing a little bit of light. It's so I can't take any more. But so the question is, so you say that being a part of dog sports will make you a better trainer. How is that? Okay, so what happens is, it's like, okay, so we do, let's say in PSA I do obedience and protection, right? So let me just give you sort of an insight into what it did for me, right? So in PSA we do, like, okay, so let's say I build a dog up to a certain level, right? Let's say for 2 years, I taught my dog to be really intense and have a tremendous affinity for a decoy, right? The moment the dog sees the decoy, the dog goes crazy. The dog wants to fight the decoy. That's what we want in a dog that does bite sport, right? After your initial title, that is your PDC, in a PSA 1, what you have to do is, there will be, during your obedience phase, there will be a decoy sitting in the field, and the dog's supposed to ignore the decoy. Like absolutely ignore the decoy. If your dog so much as lays, just like puts its mouth on the decoy, you're done. Like you go home, you're disqualified, right? So what happens is, we teach a concept called neutrality, right? While we are doing this in PSA, what you can do is, let's say you have a reactive dog, that when you are out on a walk, the dog maybe barks and lunges at people or other dogs out there, stuff like that, or maybe towards vehicles or whatever. You can use this exact same concept that we use in PSA and teach the dog to be neutral towards, whatever it is that the dog is right now tremendously reactive towards, And in PSA, we do it to the extent that, let's say at PSA 2, your dog is going to be completely naked, which means there is not even going to be a single collar or anything, not even like a small string or anything on the dog. We enter the trial field, no reward in our hands, nothing, right? And there will be decoys dancing around us, okay, teasing us, sledging us, to a very, like, to an extent, agitating the dog a little bit, stuff like that. And the dog's absolutely supposed to ignore the decoys, right? And keep in mind that these are dogs that for the first 2 years of their life, all we have taught them is to have an incredible affinity towards the decoys and really, really want to bite them. And that affinity is still going to be there, like, because after the obedience is done and you pass that, you still have to go and do protection, in which the dog has to have that affinity to the decoy, right? So yeah, I mean, this, if you can have that level of control, if you learn how to have that level of control, imagine how easy your walks will be, even if your dog has a tendency to be reactive towards something on a walk. So this is just one example. The other thing that I would like to mention is, before I got into like decoying, like training decoying, which is basically building up a dog and being able to trigger aggression, sort of enhance that aggressive response, create confidence while fighting, etc., etc. Before I got into decoying, I used to do I still do it, like behavior modification, stuff like that. But what happened was, as I started learning training decoying, it sort of gave me a very, very different perspective on how does aggression work, how does it get triggered, what exactly is happening in the dog's mind when it's being aggressive. What is the genetic component of this? What is an environmental component of this? What are some other parameters that go into what is the behavioral manifestation of this aggressive response? Meaning, does the dog stop at barking and lunging and maybe just growling at you, or will he actually bite you, etc. Right? Like, things that I had I couldn't envision before I got into decoying. But once I did get into decoying, I started seeing, even like, for me now, behavior modification when I go to treat an aggressive dog is just sort of like reverse engineering of what I do when I'm training decoying. So yeah, these are just a couple of examples, but there are a lot of things that that dog sports will help you in, just in general, in your dog keeping. Too many to just state here, and it most definitely will make you a better trainer. So that's all for today. I'll try my best to take some more questions about dog sports and all that in a future episode. Until next time, this is the Indian Cynophilist. See you again. Bye bye.